about. I mean, this is actually a long topic. So, when we take the human sensory structures and functions in whole, it includes sensory receptors as well as the sensory structure. So, under sensory structures only, we are going to have the eye and its structure and function, ear and the structure and function, and the skin and the structure and function. So, today we're just going to start off with the sensory receptors. So, that is what we will be focusing on today's seminar. Okay. So, first of all, we have to learn about what is a sensory receptor. So, what is the definition? What is this all about? Okay, and then we have to learn about the types of sensory receptors and the basic characteristics of sensory receptor. So, to call a particular structure as a sensory receptor, we need to know all of its basic characteristics. So, that is what we will be learning next after learning about the intro to sensory receptors. Okay, so this is a part of grade 13 unit 5 section. After the nervous system is over, it begins with sensory receptors. Okay, so once we learn about the basic structure, basic characteristics of the sensory receptors, we have to move on to the types of sensory receptors. So altogether there are 5 types of sensory receptors. So that is what we will be focusing on today. Okay, and I have also shared a tute with you, nervous system tute with you. So that is actually a classification of the entire nervous system, including the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, the action potential, everything, and also it includes the human sensory structures and functions. It basically includes until skin. So you can try those questions. So it has classified past papers, Morato papers, FWC papers, everything. And after today's session, we will be trying the questions with regard to sensory receptors. Okay, and also get ready to write an essay. As usual, we will be writing an essay live in the class itself, so make sure you focus and you listen to what I'm teaching. Okay, so with that being said, another thing I wanted to mention is this sensory receptor is a quite interesting topic. So meanwhile, after explaining, as usual, I'll be giving you guys time to write. Okay, so make sure you have like a large paper. So within one paper, I mean, now don't take like an A4 size paper or something, like stick it or something and have like a large paper, A3 or something, or calendar sheet or something. Have a large paper so that you can write the entire concept of sensory receptors, including the characteristics and the types of sensory receptors within one page. So after the session, you just have one sheet of paper to revise the entire sensory receptors. Okay. So, yes, that's what I wanted to say before we begin. So, I hope you all are ready to dive into today's session. So, first of all, what is a sensory receptor? Okay, a sensory receptor is a structure. Now, there can be stimulus arising. So, what is a stimulus? A stimulus is a change that is going to arise from an internal or external environment. Okay, a change which can arise from internal or external environment. External environment means, let's say you're moving your hand towards fire, so that is a stimulus. You have to move your hand away. That's an information from external environment. So likewise, there can be a stimulus arising from the internal environment as well. For example, now you have a specific blood glucose level in your body, right? Now let's say that blood glucose level, which is the normal level, changes, or else let's say you have a certain temperature in your body. So your normal body temperature is around 37 degrees Celsius. And now what happens? Now, because of some internal mechanisms, your body temperature changes. So that is a stimulus. If there is an internal stimulus, that also should be detected, and for that again we have the sensory receptor. So a receptor is basically an organ, or I'll tell you what they can be. So they'll be basically detecting the stimulus, a specific stimulus. So a sensory receptor is going to be specific to a particular stimulus, whether it is from external environment, whether it is from internal environment, it doesn't matter. It is going to be specific. Okay, so that is going to be detected by a sensory receptor. So it is a specialized structure. It is specifically there in order to detect a specific stimulus. Okay, so what it will do is, it will be converting. Now what should it do? The sensory receptor, now you're moving your hand towards the fire, so your sensory receptor in your skin, it has to convey information to your brain to say, okay, you should move your hand away. So that information should be sent to whom? To your brain. Okay, that means in some way an action potential has to be generated. Why? Because using action potential only, nerve impulses can be transmitted. So what the sensory receptor should basically do is it should convert the stimulus energy into changing membrane potential. That means it should transmit the information as action potential. But to whom should it be transmitting? It should be transmitting to your brain, your spinal cord. So basically it should be transmitting the information to your central nervous system. Okay, so what is a sensory receptor? It is a specialized structure which is designed to detect a specific stimulus. So it is specific. Okay, like if you take a particular sensory receptor, it will not have the ability to detect any stimulus. So a specific sensory receptor will be able to detect a specific stimulus. And how is it going to convey? Now we say it's going to your hand, is going to say the information to your brain. But how is this exactly being done? Through neurons. So through neurons, how will the information be traveling? In the form of action potential, that is the nerve impulse generation, right? So what the sensory receptor will be doing here is it will be converting the stimulus energy into changing membrane potential. As action potential, it will be transmitting the information to the central nervous system. Then the central nervous system will be doing the processing. That is, it will be doing the sensory perception and interpretation. It will be receiving the sensory information and it will be interpreting. Your central nervous system will be processing it, and it will decide whether you should move your hand away or not. Okay, so this is the definition for sensory receptor. So what is the sensory receptor? It is a specialized structure which is used to detect a specific stimulus. And what will it do? It will be converting the stimulus energy. So it can be light energy, it can be pressure, anything. So the stimulus energy will be converted into changing membrane potential to be transmitted to the central nervous system as action potential. Then what will happen in the central nervous system? In the central nervous system, there will be sensory perception and interpretation taking place. This is sensory receptor. So for one last time, everyone say with me, what is the definition for sensory receptor? This can come in your structure essay paper. Okay, now this definition is comparatively long. So what you have to do is break it and understand word by word. Then the definition will not be hard. So one last time, everyone say with me, what is sensory receptor? Specialized structure, and it will detect a specific stimulus by converting the stimulus energy to changing membrane potential, and it will be transmitting it to the central nervous system as action potential. For what? For sensory perception and interpretation. Okay, this is what sensory receptor means. Now what exactly is a sensory receptor? Is it a part of your body? How is it going to look like? It can be four of these. Okay, it can be. Now if you ask me how does it look like, it can be any four of this. It can be starting from a subcellular structure. Okay, inside a cell, a component, any thing which is suspended in the cell, you call it as a subcellular structure, right? So the sensory receptor, it can be a subcellular structure. Okay, or else it can be a cell, but this is not a normal body cell. Okay, it is going to be a specialized cell. So it can be a subcellular structure, it can be a specialized cell, or it can be an organ as well. Okay, so it can be a subcellular structure, it can be a specialized cell, or it can be an organ as well. So these are the three possibilities. Apart from that, remember, some of the sensory receptors are gonna be specialized neurons. You will be learning later under the types of sensory structures, sensory receptors, you will be knowing this. Okay, so some of the sensory receptors can also be a specialized neuron. So what can the sensory receptor be? If you ask how does a sensory receptor look like, how can it be? It can be a subcellular structure, it can be a specialized cell, or it can be an organ. Is that all? No. They can also be a specialized neuron. Remember this, they can ask you this in the MCQs. It can be a specialized neuron as well. Okay. Now see, what will the sensory receptor do? So, the sensory receptor will be basically involving in informing the central nervous system. Okay, it will inform the central nervous system about the conditions inside and outside the body. Okay, this is the body. So, not only will the sensory receptors tell you what is happening outside. Okay, it's not only about what you're seeing or what you're hearing or what you're touching. It will also inform the central nervous system of the conditions inside your body. What is your blood glucose level? What is your temperature? What is your body temperature? So everything will be informed by the sensory receptors. So they will be constantly updating your central nervous system regarding the conditions inside and outside the body. And therefore, do you know what are they going to do? They will be maintaining homeostasis inside your body. The constant internal environment could be maintained only because of these sensory receptors, which will be constantly updating your central nervous system about the conditions inside and outside your body. Okay, so what will the sensory receptors do? They can inform the central nervous system about the conditions inside and outside the body in order to maintain the proper homeostasis. Okay, so if you take specific sensory receptors, they can detect the stimulus from external environment. Like I said, the stimulus can be arising. Stimulus can be a change which can arise from the internal environment as well as from the external environment. So if it is arising from the internal environment, it's like the factors which are maintained constant in your internal environment is changing. So if it is from external environment, it can be anything that is actually going to cause a sudden change. So certain sensory receptors will have the ability to detect the stimulus from external environment. And there are certain others which are basically internal receptors, and they will be detecting the stimulus from the internal environment. Okay. So there are internal receptors, internal sensory receptors, as well as external sensory receptors. So specific sensory receptors have the ability to detect the stimulus from external environment, the ones which are arising, the stimulus which are arising from external environment, for example, moving your hand away from the fire or hearing a loud noise in your, like basically closing your ears. So those things are like external environment stimulus. So there are specific sensory receptors to detect them. Apart from that, there are internal receptors present as well, and they will be detecting the stimulus like change in temperature, change in blood glucose level. So, all of those which are arising in the internal environment are going to be detected by the internal receptors. Okay. So, this is basically the introduction to sensory receptors. So, what did we learn? First of all, we started off with the definition for sensory receptors. They are specialized structures which will detect a specific stimulus. What will they do? Say with me. Okay, repeat with me and memorize it in the class itself. They will convert the stimulus energy into changing membrane potential to be transmitted to the central nervous system as action potential for sensory perception and interpretation. Listen carefully, you will have to write an essay. Okay. So what can they be? How do they look like? They can be a subcellular structure, a component inside the cell, or they can be an entire cell itself, but the cell is specialized, or they can be an organ as well. And some of them can also be specialized neurons. Okay. So these sensory receptors have the ability to inform the central nervous system. They'll be updating the central nervous system about the conditions inside and outside the body in order to maintain the homeostasis. So there are two types. One type can detect the stimulus from external environment. So there are specific sensory receptors to detect the stimulus from external environment, and there are others which are internal receptors which will be detecting the stimulus from internal environment. Okay, so this is the introduction. Did you all understand? Is it clear? Any doubts, everyone? Clear? If you have doubts, please feel free to ask. Okay. So now, starting off with your mind map, you can start copying this down. Okay. So first of all, the intro, and then we will be moving on to the others. So I'll give you 2 minutes. Quickly copy down. Don't take the time for granted. Always write whatever you have to write in the class itself. Don't waste your precious time later to sit and write notes. Okay. So quickly complete and let me know if you're done. Continue. So now we are going to learn about the basic characteristics of sensory receptors. So there are 6 characteristics you should know, and these are common to all the sensory receptors which will be there. The first thing is something that you already know. So they can be what? They can be a subcellular structure, they can be a specialized cell, or they can be an organ. And remember, they are designed in such a way that they will be receiving a specific stimulus. So a specific sensory structure will be receiving a specific stimulus. A specific sensory receptor will be responsible to receive a specific stimulus. So what is the first characteristic? They can be a subcellular structure, they can be a specialized cell, or they can be an organ designed to receive a specific stimulus. Okay. Then the second thing is, so they will be able to detect a stimulus only if the stimulus is above the threshold level. So you will have a threshold level for everything, okay? For the stimulus, you will be having a threshold level. For example, let's say pain. So for pain also, you will be having a threshold level. So if you are feeling now, if somebody pinches you, only if it is very worse, you will move your hand away. If just somebody touches you, will you move your, will touch you, will you move your hand away? No, right? So obviously if it's your friend, so if somebody pinches you, you will move your hand away. So if the stimulus is above the threshold level, only the sensory receptor is going to detect it. Okay, so what is the first basic characteristic? It can be a subcellular structure, it can be a specialized cell, it can be an organ designed to receive a specific stimulus. Then there will be a threshold level. Only if the stimulus is above the threshold level, the sensory receptor will be detecting it. So it will be detecting the stimulus if the stimulus is at or above the threshold level. Okay, it can be at or above the threshold level. Fine. Then the third thing is, so how is it going to transmit the information? Can it be sending letters to your brain? No. So it has to convert the energy of the stimulus into action potential. Only if it transmits, only if it converts it into nerve impulses, the information can be transmitted to your brain. So that is what the sensory receptors are going to do. The energy of the stimulus, whether it is light, whether it is sound, whether it is pressure, it doesn't matter. Energy of the stimulus is going to be converted into changing membrane potential, which will be later transmitted to your central nervous system through the neurons as action potential, which means the nerve impulses are going to be generated, and ultimately the information is going to be conveyed to your brain. Okay, so what is the third basic characteristic? All of them, they have the ability to convert the energy of the stimulus into changing membrane potential. So that means what they're doing there is they're trying to tell the brain, okay, there's something wrong, there's something happening out, so you have to look at it. So basically it's conveying the information, but it can't convey the information like how we are communicating. It can convey the information to your central nervous system, your brain, only through neurons. So how will neurons be conveying the information? In the form of nerve impulses. So they should convert whatever is being received into nerve impulses, which means they should convert it into changing membrane potential or action potential. So how will they do this? By converting the energy of the stimulus into the action potential. That is the third feature of sensory receptor. What's the third feature? Say with me. Energy of the stimulus. It can be light, sound, etc. Whatever it is, it's going to be converting it into changing membrane potential, which will be later transmitted to your central nervous system as action potential. Okay. Then the fourth characteristic, whatever the sensory receptor, it is going to be internal or external, it doesn't matter, it is always going to be connected to your nervous system. Okay, to your nervous system, it is always going to be connected. Why? Because the nervous system is going to be connecting with the neurons, and the neurons will be ultimately connected to these sensory receptors. So it should be able to convey whatever information it is getting, it should be able to send it to your brain. So obviously it should be connected to the nervous system. That is the fourth characteristic. So all these sensory receptors are always going to be connected to your central nervous system. So what is the first one? Once again, it can be a subcellular structure, a specialized cell and organ designed to receive a specific stimulus. How, when will it be detecting the stimulus? Only if the stimulus is at or above the threshold level. Third, how will it transmit the information? The energy of the stimulus, light, sound, whatever it is going to be converted into nerve impulses. It's going to be converted into changing membrane potential, which will be later transmitted as action potential. And remember, they always have to be connected to your nervous system so that they can send the information to your brain. Okay. Now see, when they are converting the energy of the stimulus into the changing membrane potential, they can actually strengthen the sensory signal. Okay, this sending the information to your nervous system is basically the sensory signal. Okay, the sensory receptors are sending a signal to your brain. The sensory receptors are sending a signal to your central nervous system. So during this process, when they are converting the energy of the stimulus into changing membrane potential, which means they are, sending sensory signals, they can strengthen the sensory signal. Okay, that means if there's a certain energy, they can amplify it, they can strengthen that signal, and that process is known as sensory amplification or just amplification. Okay, so what is the fifth characteristic? I'll say again. Now the energy of the stimulus is going to be converted into changing membrane potential, right, by the sensory receptor. So during the process of this conversion, the sensory receptors have the ability to strengthen this process. So the energy is going to be further strengthened, so the sensory signals are going to be strengthened. So it's like when you have to say something to someone, you're just amplifying it and saying, you're exaggerating and saying it. So that's what the sensory receptors are going to do here. The sensory signal which has to be transmitted to your central nervous system can be exaggerated, they can be strengthened, and this process is known as amplification. Okay, so during the conversion of stimulus energy into action potential, the sensory signal can be strengthened, and this process is known as amplification. Okay, that's the fifth characteristic of sensory receptors. Then the last one, the sixth one, if the stimulation is continuous. Now let's say there is a particular odor, a smell, or a fragrance, whatever it is, around in your room. So when you first enter your room, you will be able to feel it. Okay, there is something different, you're feeling a bad smell, or you're feeling a fragrance, or whatever it is, you will be able to feel it. But after some time, when you're just staying there for a few minutes, will you be able to notice it for the whole time? No. After some time, you will be adapted to it. That is because your sensory receptors are showing a decrease in responsiveness. Okay, so what's happening here is, let's say you are in your room, okay, and you get out and you feel a really nice smell or something like that. Okay, let's be positive and let's say you feel a nice smell. So during that time, what's going to happen is, you will immediately feel it, but once you go there and once you stay for some time, you won't be able to feel it anymore. But it doesn't mean the smell has gone. Somebody, if they enter once again, if there's somebody else who enters, they will be able to feel it, but then why aren't you feeling it? The reason is because if the stimulation is continuous, now the fragrance that you had in your room is a stimulus because it's not something that's usually there. So that's a stimulus. If the stimulus is continuous, many receptors show a decrease in responsiveness. They won't respond to the stimulus anymore. So this process is known as sensory adaptation. So what is sensory adaptation? If the stimulation is continuous, many receptors show a decrease in responsiveness. Many, not all of them. Remember in the MCQ, if they say all receptors show a decrease in responsiveness or all receptors show sensory adaptation, it is completely wrong. Many receptors are only, they have specifically said that, okay, many receptors show a decrease in responsiveness, which means you will get used to that smell. So that is known as sensory adaptation. So there are two important things you have to remember here. One is sensory amplification, the other one is sensory adaptation. Amplification means when the information is going to be transmitted to your central nervous system, or when the energy of the stimulus is being converted to changing membrane potential, the sensory receptors have the ability to strengthen that, they have the ability to exaggerate that. That is amplification. What is sensory adaptation? If the stimulus is continuous, if it occurs for a long time, many receptors, many sensory receptors have an ability to show decrease in responsiveness. They won't mind it anymore. Like they will not no longer, they will no longer find it as a stimulus. So that is only known as sensory adaptation. Okay, so these are the six basic characteristics of sensory receptors. One last time, everyone say with me, what are the basic characteristics? One, it can be a subcellular structure, a specialized cell, or an organ which is designed to receive a specific stimulus. Then, when will it be able to detect the stimulus? If the stimulus is at or above the threshold level. Third, how is it going to transmit the information to your brain? Through nerve impulses. So, how is it generating that nerve impulses? The energy is obtained from the stimulus, and that energy is going to be converted into changing membrane potential, which will be later transmitted as action potential. Okay, then it is always going to be it is always going to be connected to your nervous system. Remember that, because it has to transmit the information. And then we have something called as amplification, which means when the energy of the stimulus is converted to changing membrane potential, sensory signal can be strengthened, they can exaggerate the information, and that is known as amplification. Finally, if the stimulation is continuous, many receptors show a decrease in responsiveness, which is called as sensory adaptation. For an example, if there is a continuous exposure to a strong smell, the perception of that smell will gradually decrease, and finally you will also stop the perception. You will no longer feel that as a foreign smell anymore. Okay, so this is all about the basic characteristics of sensory receptors, something that's common to all that we will be learning next. So we'll be learning about the types. So did you all understand? Is it clear, everyone? Understood? Yes, clear. Okay, so now you can complete your chart further by copying this down as well. So try to write without looking, okay? So when you try to write without looking, you'll feel like you're memorizing it in the class itself. So take as much as steps possible to memorize stuffs in the class itself. Try to write without looking, and when I'm repeating it 2 or 3 times, try to say it with me, and then you will automatically remember the content, okay? So let me know once you're done. I'll give you about 2 minutes. Okay, so now we are going to be moving to the most important part, which is questioned usually, and that is the types of sensory receptors. Okay, so we have 5 types of sensory receptors, as I mentioned: chemoreceptors, thermoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and pain receptors. What are the 5 types? Chemoreceptors, thermoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and pain receptors. So each one of them, one by one, we have to learn. Okay, so you have to know what is the stimulus in each one of them. So what will they be responding to? So chemoreceptors, what they're going to respond to. Thermoreceptors, what will they be responding to? So each one of them, you have to know what the stimulus is and what are the receptors they're going to be having, specific receptors they're going to have to respond to the particular stimulus. Okay, so starting off with chemoreceptors, listen carefully. Chemoreceptors, they will be responding to chemical stimuli. Okay, that means certain chemicals from the environment, from the internal or external environments. That is what they will be responding to. So what will they be responding to? Chemical stimuli. Chemo means chemicals. They will be responding to chemical stimuli. Okay, so but remember, whatever the chemical substance is, they should always be dissolved in water so that the sensory cells can get stimulated. Sensory cells which are present in the receptors, for them to get stimulated, these chemical substances which are going to be detected should always be dissolving in water. So that is a condition. Okay, so in order to stimulate the sensory cells, in order to activate these sensory cells, these chemical substances which are gonna get detected, they should always be dissolved in water. Okay, so there are basically 3 types of chemoreceptors. Okay, the first one is taste receptors, olfactory receptors, and there are receptors which can detect specific chemicals. Okay, so there are 3 according to what they have given you. There are 3. One is taste receptors, olfactory receptors, and there are some others which can detect specific chemicals. For example, the carbon dioxide in your circulating blood, the carbon dioxide concentration in your circulating blood. So I think this might be somewhere somewhat familiar to you. Okay, so think about it where you have learned this. Okay, so chemoreceptors, they will be responding to what stimuli? They will be responding to chemical stimuli. So chemical substances, should they be dissolved in something or not? Yes, they should always be dissolved in water so that the sensory cells, they can get stimulated. So what are the 3 types of chemoreceptors? Taste receptors, olfactory receptors, and there can be some chemoreceptors which can detect the specific chemicals. For example, like the carbon dioxide concentration in your circulating blood. Okay, then moving on to taste receptors and olfactory receptors. So taste receptors, as the name says, they'll be detecting taste. Okay, they'll be detecting your basic sensation, taste sensations. Olfactory receptors, they will be detecting the smell. Okay, fragrance, odor, whatever it is, those will be detected by the olfactory receptors. So that's the slight glimpse of what we will be learning under taste receptors and olfactory receptors. Now let's move on to the taste receptors. Okay, Okay, so I hope you're clear until here. We are learning about chemoreceptors. That's what we are starting off now. So everything what I have written here is regarding chemoreceptors only. So under chemoreceptors only, we have three taste receptors, which will be detecting the types of taste, olfactory receptors, which will be detecting the odor, fragrance, etc. And there can be others which can detect specific chemicals like CO2 in the blood, in your circulating blood. So first, taste receptors. So they will be mediating the senses of taste. So you will be able to distinguish. Okay, this is sour in taste. This is bitter in taste. This is sweet in taste. So all of these are possible because of your taste receptors which are present in your tongue. Okay. So what will the taste receptors do? They will be mediating the senses of taste. So what are the five basic taste sensations? You have five taste sensations: sweet, sour, bitter, salt, and savory. So these are the five types of sensations. Okay, so this is mentioned, so don't neglect it. So under taste receptors, what are the different types of sensations that they can detect? They will be basically detecting, they will be basically mediating the senses of taste. So what are those senses? There are five. Okay, there is sweet, so you can detect the sweet taste, you can detect the sour taste, you can detect the bitter, salt, and savory. Okay, so taste receptors can detect these five basic sensations. So where exactly are these taste receptors present? If you take your tongue, there are small projections in your tongue. Okay, there will be small projections in your tongue present. These small projections of your tongue are called as papillae. Okay, so if you now we are going to look at where these taste receptors are present and how are they going to look like. So in your tongue, obviously the taste receptors are going to be there. So where are they exactly present in your tongue? If you take your tongue, there are very small projections present in your tongue which are called as papillae. Okay, so here in the papillae there are modified epithelial cells present. Okay, so in the papillae there are modified epithelial cells present, and in these modified epithelial cells only these receptor cells for tastes are present. Okay, so in these small projections of your tongue called papillae only the receptor cells for taste are present. Where exactly? Exactly, if we say it is present in the modified epithelial cells. So in the papillae there are epithelial cells, but they are not just normal epithelial cells, they are modified epithelial cells which are going to be organized into taste buds. So these taste buds are only the receptors for taste. These taste buds are only the taste receptors. Okay, once again, listen carefully. What will the taste receptors do? They will mediate the senses of taste. So what are the five basic sensations? Sweet, sour, bitter, salt, and savory. So where are they exactly present? So obviously your tongue is the one which will aid you to sense the taste. So there will be small projections present in your tongue called as the papillae. So these papillae are the ones which will be containing the receptor cells for taste, which means they will be containing the taste receptors. So in the papillae there are modified epithelial cells present, not just normal epithelial cells, they are modified epithelial cells. These modified epithelial cells are organized to form the taste buds. So how is a taste bud going to look like? This is how a taste bud is gonna be. Okay, so in the middle what you have is the taste cells. Okay, this is the taste, these are the taste cells. These taste cells will be supported by something called as the supporting cells. Okay, so these blue color ones are the taste cells. These taste cells, they will be supported by the supporting cell. So a taste bud is going to contain a taste cell, it will be containing supporting cells, and it is going to contain sensory nerve endings. So these are the sensory nerve endings. So the information the stimulus is going to be detected by these taste cells, then it will be converting the information, it will be converting the stimulus energy into action potential, and then it is going to transmit the information through these sensory nerve endings to your brain, to your central nervous system. Okay, so what are the three components of the taste bud? A taste bud is going to contain a taste cell, it is going to contain supporting cells, and it is going to contain sensory nerve endings, of course, because it has to transmit the information to your central nervous system. Okay, so apart from that, also remember there will be taste hairs present as well. So these are the main components. So apart from that, there will be taste hairs present as well. Okay, now, how will the substance which has to be tasted be detected by the sensory cells? How will they be detected by the taste cells? So, whatever substance it is, it has to be dissolved in the fluid. Okay, the substance which has to be tasted, it should be dissolved in the fluid which is surrounding the taste cell. So, you have the saliva in your mouth, so it will be dissolved in there, and then finally it will be diffusing into your sensory receptor. It will be diffusing into your taste cells, and then you will be able to detect it. Once you transmit the information to your central nervous system, your brain will be saying, okay, you're eating a sweet, you're eating a brownie, whatever it is, you will be able to feel that. Okay, so this is all about taste receptors. So once again, taste receptors will be mediating the senses of taste. So what are the five basic sensations? These are the five basic sensations. Where are these taste receptors present? In your tongue. Your tongue is responsible for detecting the taste. So there are small projections present in your tongue called as the papillae, and these papillae are the ones which will be containing the taste receptors, which means the receptor cells for taste. Okay, where exactly are they present? In the papillae, there are epithelial cells present, but these are not just normal epithelial cells, they are modified epithelial cells. These modified epithelial cells, they will be organized in such a way as to form taste buds. So if you take a taste bud, if you take an image of a taste bud, this is how it's going to look like. So it is going to have taste cells, which are the basically the receptor cells, and there will be supporting cells to provide a small support for them to, detect the stimulus, and then they will also be having sensory nerve endings so that they can transmit the information to your CNS. Okay, apart from that, remember they also have taste hairs present on top of them. So how is this going to do the detection? The substance which you have to be tasted, small pieces of your food will get dissolved in the fluid which is surrounding the taste bud, and then ultimately these substances will get diffused through the fluid, and they will go to the receptor cells. Then your receptor cells will be detecting the particular food that you're eating, whether it is sweet, sour, bitter, whatever it is. Okay, so this is all about taste receptors. Then moving on to olfactory receptors. So I said your olfactory receptors means you will be able to detect the odor, the smell, the fragrance, whatever it is, you will be able to detect it because of the olfactory receptors. So they will be mediating senses of smell. Now senses of taste, senses of smell means the types of smell. Okay, now it's not constricted to a particular smell. It's not only fragrance or it's not only odor. So it can be any type of sense of smell. So they'll be mediating the senses of smell. All right. So the receptor cells of olfactory receptors, remember, they are neurons. So in the taste receptor, the taste receptors are what? They are cells. So see, I told you earlier, the sensory receptor can be either a subcellular structure, they can be a specialized cell, they can be an organ, as well as they can be specialized neurons. So in taste receptor, what was the structure of a particular taste receptor? They were cells. See, they were taste cells. Okay, so olfactory receptor, if you take, these receptor cells are neurons. So taste receptors were cells, olfactory receptors are neurons. Okay, so they'll be mediating the senses of smell. So now see, this is your nasal cavity. Okay, so obviously your nose is the one which will be through which you will be smelling, right? So your nasal cavity will be involving in the detection of smell. So in the upper portion, okay, in the upper portion of your nasal cavity, the epithelium here will be containing the olfactory receptor cells. Okay, so where will you have these olfactory receptor cells? So now, like we learned in taste receptors, we should know the exact location. So here it was in the tongue. Here in the nasal cavity, so specifically in the nasal cavity, where in the upper portion of your nasal cavity, the epithelial layer, okay, the epithelium will be containing the olfactory receptor cells or receptor neurons. Okay, So now these olfactory receptor cells, their ends will be extending into a mucus layer which is there in the nasal cavity. Of course, the nasal cavity is lined by a mucus layer, right? So if this is the epithelial layer, okay, if this is the epithelial upper portion epithelium of your nasal cavity, so the olfactory receptor cells are present here. Okay, so each olfactory receptor will be having receptive ends. These receptive ends, they will be extending into the mucus layer of your nasal cavity. So if this is the mucus layer of your nasal cavity, and if this is the olfactory receptor cell, the receptive ends are going to extend like this into the mucus layer. Okay, so then see how will it be detecting the particular odor, or what, how will it be detecting the particular smell? So the odorants, they will diffuse. Okay, the smell, the odorants which are responsible for producing the smell, they will diffuse into this mucus layer. Okay, then they will stimulate the receptor cells. So once these odorants diffuse into the mucus layer, now what do you have in the mucus layer? The receptive ends of these olfactory receptor cells. So once the receptive ends, once these odorants diffuse into the nasal cavity, into the mucus layer, and once they reach these receptive ends, the receptor cells are gonna get stimulated. Okay, then once the receptor cells get stimulated, along the axon, nerve impulse will get generated. So this nerve impulse will be ultimately transmitted to the olfactory bulb in your brain. Okay, so the olfactory bulb is gonna be there in your brain. Fine. So that is how your brain will be detecting what type of smell it is, whether it is a fragrance, whether it is a bad smell, whether you have to turn away or whether you have to keep smelling or close your nose, whatever it is, it will be transmitting the information to your olfactory bulb in the brain to decide what you should do next. Okay, so this is about olfactory receptors. So olfactory receptors, once again, what will they be mediating? Say with me, they will be mediating the senses of smell. So here, what are these receptor cells? What are the olfactory receptors? Are they cells? Are they neurons? Are they organs? They are neurons. So I told you earlier, I mentioned that we will be learning about the types, and in some of them we will learn that some of them are going to be neurons. So olfactory receptors are neurons. So where are they present? So please ask yourself questions, then you will be able to remember the flow. So here also see, first of all, what are they detecting, and then where are they present, and then how do they look like, and what are they going to do, what are they going to contribute in order to detect the particular stimulus. So here also, what are they going to detect? The senses of smell. So how are they? Are they cells, or what are they? They are neurons. Where are they present? In the nasal cavity, in the upper portion of the epithelium, the olfactory receptor cells are going to be present. So the receptive ends of these olfactory receptor cells, they will be extending into the mucus layer of the nasal cavity. Of course, the nasal cavity is going to have the mucus layer. So these receptive ends are going to extend into this mucus layer, because I told you for sensory receptors, what is necessary for these chemoreceptors? What is necessary? There should always be a watery medium so that the chemical substances can dissolve. So here the watery medium is basically the saliva surrounding, and here the watery medium is of course the mucus layer. So when the odorants are going to diffuse into this mucus layer, since there are receptive ends of these receptor cells present, the receptor cells will get stimulated. Then they will be transmitting the information to your brain. How? There will be nerve impulse traveling along the axon, and ultimately they will reach the olfactory bulb in the brain. Then your brain will tell the information whether you have to keep smelling or not. Okay, so this is all about chemoreceptors, taste receptors, and olfactory receptors. So we started with what the chemoreceptors are gonna respond to, and then the condition as to how the sensory cells are going to be stimulated, and then we learned about the three types of chemoreceptors, and remember there are some which can detect specific chemicals like CO2 in the blood. Okay, did you all understand? Is it clear? Any doubts, everyone? Is it clear? Yes, clear. Yeah, the receptor cell for taste. Yeah, the receptor cell, yeah, the taste is gonna have a receptor cell. Understood. Okay, so now you can complete your chart, the type. So like I mentioned, you can divide the entire chart into 5. Okay, leave space for chemoreceptors and write all of these, and then make sure you leave space for thermoreceptors, photoreceptors, mechanoreceptors, and pain receptors as well. So the reason why I couldn't include everything in a single chart is because of course I have to make the font bigger, but make sure that you write it small and have the entire thing in one chart so that you can revise easily. Okay, so I'll give you about 2-3 minutes. Let me know when you have done. And also don't write when I'm explaining. Okay, so I am not repeating the explanations because I'm not doing that because you have not understood or something. The reason why I'm doing that is when you listen to it again and again, the automatically the information will get stored in your brain. You will have it memorized in your brain. So don't take that as an excuse and write. Listen. So that's the purpose of repeating again and again. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes. Quickly complete. Inside the recipe is thermoreceptors. Okay, thermoreceptors and photoreceptors, will be looking at them together. Okay, so thermoreceptors, like the name says, they will be detecting the temperature. Okay, so they are specialized temperature sensitive receptors. So they can not only detect heat. Now when we say temperature, we might think extreme heat. No, they will not only detect heat, they will also detect cold on the body surface. So on the body surface, they will be able to detect the heat and cold. So what is thermoreceptors? Thermo means temperature. So they are specialized temperature sensitive receptors. Okay, so what are they going to do? Are they going to only detect the heat in your body? No, they will be detecting heat and cold on the body and also in the internal environment of the body. So remember, they will not only be detecting the heat or cold on the body surface but also in the internal environment. So you have to know that they will be detecting both the body's surface temperature as well as the internal body temperature, which means the temperature of your internal body fluids like the blood and all. Okay, so that's what they will be doing. So what are thermoreceptors? They are specialized temperature sensitive receptors. They will be detecting heat as well as cold on the body surface as well as the internal environment of the body. So these thermoreceptors, where are they located? They are present in two locations. Okay, they'll be present in two places in your body. So one, they can be present in your skin as well as they will be present in your hypothalamus. So if you have learned already, you might know that the hypothalamus is actually a place where the temperature regulation is taking place. Okay, so these thermoreceptors will be present in the skin as well as in the hypothalamus. Okay, so if they are present on the skin, they are basically detecting the surface temperature, your body surface temperature. So now what is our concern? Our concern is these thermoreceptors should be able to detect the body surface temperature as well as the internal environment temperature. So the ones which are present on the skin, they will be detecting the surface temperature. And the ones which are present in the hypothalamus, they will be detecting the core body temperature, which means the internal temperature. Okay, so they are found where? They are found in the skin and in the hypothalamus. So the ones which are present in the skin, they will be detecting the surface temperature. The ones which are present in the hypothalamus, they will be detecting the core body temperature. So what are the types of? Now you will be learning about different names of these thermoreceptors, and the ones which will be coming on later, we will be learning different names for these receptors. Okay. So the ones which are present in skin can be three types. There are three types of thermoreceptors which can be present in the skin. The first one is crows and bulbs. What do you call it? Crows and bulbs. The second one is roughly corpuscles. Crows and bulbs, roughly corpuscles, and there are free nerve endings. These are the three types of thermoreceptors which can be present in your skin. So say with me, what are the three types of thermoreceptors which can be present in your skin and which are responsible for detecting the surface temperature? Crows and bulbs, roughly corpuscles, and free nerve endings. Now see, the detection done by them are going to be different. Okay, so all of them are not going to do the same detection. So if you take the crows and bulbs, they will be detecting the cold. Okay, they'll be detecting cold on your body surface, whether your body surface is cold or not. So that will be detected by whom? By crows and bulbs. Roughneck corpuscles, they will be detecting the warmth on your body surface. So crows and bulbs which is a type of thermoreceptor on your skin, they will be detecting cold on your body surface. Roughly copper cell, which is also a type of thermoreceptor present on your skin, they will be detecting the warmth on your body surface. And if you take a look at free nerve endings, they will be detecting both cold as well as warmth on your body surface. Okay, so once again, thermoreceptors are what? They are specialized temperature sensitive receptors. What will they be detecting? They'll be detecting heat and cold on your body surface as well as the internal environment of your body, your core body temperature. So where are they found? They are found in two locations. They are found in your skin as well as in your hypothalamus in your brain. Okay, so can you remember where hypothalamus is? Below the thalamus, below and in front of the thalamus. Okay, so the ones which are present in your skin, they are responsible for detecting the surface temperature, and the ones which are present in the hypothalamus, they will be detecting the core body temperature. So if you take a look at the thermoreceptors on your skin, there are three types: Krause and bulbs, roughy corpuscles, and free nerve endings. Krause and bulbs will be detecting the cold on your body surface. Roughly corpuscles will be detecting warmth on your body surface. Free nerve endings will be detecting both cold as well as warmth. So one trick to remember which one is going to detect the cold and warmth is now Krause and bulbs and cold. Krause and cold, they both start with this same cur, right? So you can remember something like that. So that's how I remembered. So then roughly corpuscles will be detecting the warmth, and free nerve endings, they have the ability to detect both. Okay, then moving on to the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus will be having specialized neurons for this purpose. So there is no special name. They'll be having specialized neurons which will be detecting the core body temperature, which means the temperature of the blood which is circulating through your internal organs. That is the internal environment. So when you say internal environment, it is your internal body fluids, the blood, the interstitial fluid. That is what you consider as the internal environment. So hypothalamus will be basically detecting the core body temperature, which means the temperature of the blood circulating through your internal organs. So what do they have to do this for this purpose? What do they have for this purpose? They have specialized neurons for this purpose. Okay, this is all about thermoreceptors. Then moving on to photoreceptors. So like the name says, photo means light. So they are sensitive to light. So see, everything has a nice flow. Okay, so for all of the receptors, you start with what they are responsible for detecting. So chemoreceptors, chemical stimuli; taste receptors, taste; olfactory receptors, smell; thermoreceptors, temperature; photoreceptors, they will be sensitive to light. They will be detecting light. Okay, so there are two types of photoreceptors which are present in order to detect light. So one is the rods, the other one is the cones. Rods and cones, they are sensitive to light. They are the types of photoreceptors which will be detecting the light. Okay, so now you have to know why are there two types? Obviously, if there are two types, there should be differences in what they do, right? So rods, if you take, they don't distinguish color, which means they don't have the ability to say that this is red, this is blue. So if your rods photoreceptors are rods which are getting stimulated, you can't say whether it is red or blue or yellow or green what you're looking at. So rods, remember, they don't distinguish colors. Okay, on the other hand, cones are the ones which will be providing color vision. So you can see the screen in these beautiful colors because of cones, because cones are responsible. Cones are the photoreceptors which are responsible for providing color vision. Okay. Then the next difference is rods are highly sensitive to light, which means if there is a little bit amount of light, you will be able to see because of the presence of rods. So even if there is a little bit amount of light, now let's say you are in a very dark place, okay, you're trapped in a dark room or something, and there is a there's a slight light coming through the door or something. So you will be able to see that light, you will be able to detect that light because of your rods, because they are highly sensitive to light. But cones, on the other hand, if you take, they are not much sensitive to light. It's not that they are not sensitive at all. They are sensitive, but not much. Okay. So rods, what are the two types of photoreceptors? Rods and cones. Rods, do they distinguish colors? No, rods don't distinguish colors. Cones, they do distinguish colors. So see, both of them, color vision and cones, they start with C. So you can remember cones distinguish colors, which means they provide color vision. Okay. Rods, they are highly sensitive to light, which means even if there is a little bit amount of light, you will be able to see because of your rods. On the other hand, the cones are not much sensitive to light. Okay. This is important for night vision. If you take a look at the night time, is the lightning going to be high? No, unlike the daytime, you won't be having much lightning. So this is helpful during the night time, because even if there is a little bit amount of light during the night time, your rods will be highly sensitive. So since your rods are highly sensitive, with a minimum amount of light you will be able to see. So this is why rods are important. So rods being highly sensitive to light is important for you to see at night time. So it is important for night vision. So they will be enabling us to see at night. But there is a problem. There is a limitation. The limitation is that you will be able to see only in black and white. You won't be able to distinguish colors during the night time. So if you have a very minimal amount of light and it's very dark, will you be able to distinguish colors? No, that's because it's your rods which are helping you to see at that moment, and your rods don't have the ability to distinguish colors. So one thing that the rods are being highly sensitive to light is useful because it's helping you to see at night. But the disadvantage, the drawback is that since it cannot distinguish colors, you will be able to see at night but only in black and white. Okay. On the other hand, since cones are not much sensitive to light, so they will need a lot of light in order to provide you with the color vision. So they will contribute very little to night vision. Since they're not much sensitive, they're not going to contribute much, but they'll be contributing very little to your night vision. So your night vision is basically provided completely by the rods, okay, and it will be contributed little by the cones. Fine. And then there is something else which is important. This is called as the pigment. Okay, so the pigment which is present in the rods, okay, the pigment which is present in the rods is gonna be rhodopsin. Okay, the visual pigment which is present in the rods is known as rhodopsin. So this visual pigment is only enabling the function of the rods. Okay, so the visual pigment in rods is called as rhodopsin, and the visual pigment in the cones is called as photopsin, not conopsin or anything. It is photopsin. Rods is rhodopsin. So what are rhodopsin and photopsin? They are visual pigments present in the photoreceptors. Okay, so they are the ones which will be helping for the function of rods and cones. So the not photosynthetic pigment, the visual pigment in rods is rhodopsin, and the visual pigment in cones is photopsin. Okay. Apart from that, remember, cones are basically divided into three main colors. Okay, there are three types of cones which will be detecting three major colors: red, blue, and green. So these are the primary colors, right? RBG, primary colors. So depending upon the mixture, you will be able to see a variety of other colors as well. So basically, since these are the primary, there are three types of cones, and three types of cones will be responsible for detecting red, blue, and green. So remember now, if you take a visible spectrum, so in the visible spectrum, they'll be having a different range of colors, right? So each of these types of cones will be having different sensitivity across the visible spectrum, which means if the cone, now for example, let's say you are looking at a red color. So when you're looking at a red color, the cones which is responsible, the particular type of cone which is responsible for detecting the red color will be sensitive at that moment. So each of the three types will be having different sensitivity across the visible spectrum depending upon the color which they are going to detect. Okay, that is how we are going to have three types of cones. So listen again. Photoreceptors, if you take, like the name says, they will be detecting light. Photo means light. There are two types of photoreceptors, rods and cones. So what are rods? Rods will be distinguishing colors or not? No. Rods, they don't have the ability to distinguish colors. On the other hand, cones, they do provide color vision and they have the ability to distinguish colors. Okay. Rods, they are highly sensitive to light. So even if there is a little bit of light, rods, they will get activated and they'll be enabling enabling you to see. So since they are highly sensitive to light, this is important for you to see at night. They are enabling night vision. So this is important to see at night. But the drawback is, since they are not able to distinguish colors, you will be able to see at night only in black and white vision. On the other hand, the cones, they are not much sensitive to light. Okay, even though they provide color vision, they are not much sensitive to light, and therefore they are going to contribute very little to night vision. Then, what are the visual pigments which are going to be present in each of these photoreceptors? In rods, the visual pigment is called as rhodopsin. In cones, the visual pigment is called as photopsin. Okay. Then under cones, there are three types of cones present, and each of these are going to have different sensitivity across the visible spectrum. Which means if the particular wavelength, now in the visible spectrum, you will have different wavelengths for different color, right? So now, right now, if you are going to look at a red color, so for that particular color, the particular receptor which will be detecting it will get activated. The particular cone will get activated. So based on that, there are three types for three colors: red, blue, and green. Okay, so this is all about thermoreceptors and photoreceptors. So remember what they are detecting: thermoreceptors temperature, photoreceptors light, and what will they be exactly detecting? Heat or cold in the internal as well as on the surface. And remember the types of photoreceptors and in the visual pigments, and also remember the features, because they can ask you in the structured essays to contrast the features. Okay, and most importantly, remember these examples: crows and bulbs, they'll be detecting cold; roughneck corpuscles, they'll be detecting warmth; and free nerve endings, they'll be detecting both cold as well as warmth. And don't forget, thermoreceptors are present in the skin as well as in the hypothalamus. Alright, got it? Everyone, did you all understand? So photoreceptors, where can you find them? Obviously in your eyes, okay? In your retina. Understood, everyone? Clear? Yes. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes, quickly copy this down, and then we will be moving on to the last two types of receptors, mechano and pain receptors. Quickly copy this down and let me know when you're done. Receptors and pain receptors. Okay, so if you take the mechanoreceptors and pain receptors, mechanoreceptors will be responding to stimulus which will be occurring as a result of mechanical energy deformation. Now this might look like a whole new physics concept to you, but don't worry, this simply means they will be detecting to other stuffs like pressure, touch, stretch, sound, motion. So all of these are mechanical energy deformation, which means mechanical energy is going to be converted into stuffs like pressure, touch, sound, and all. So all of these are the extra stuffs which cannot be put into any of these are going to be detected by the mechanoreceptors. Okay, so what is mechanoreceptors going to do? Mechanoreceptors will be responding to stimulus that will be arising as a result of mechanical energy deformation. So is it rocket science? No. Mechanical energy deformation means they will be detecting pressure, touch, stretch, sound, or motion. Okay. So now we are going to be having three types of mechanoreceptors present in the human body, and those are touch receptors, pressure receptors, and vibration receptors. What are the three types of mechanoreceptors present in the human body? Touch receptors, pressure receptors, and vibration receptors. Okay, touch receptors, if you ask where are they present, they are mostly present close to the skin surface, because now you touch your skin surface, right? You don't touch the internal environment, right? So you touch your skin surface, and therefore these touch receptors will be present mostly close to your skin surface. So there are three types of touch receptors present. Okay, the examples for touch receptors are, there is something called as Meissner corpuscles. Meissner corpuscles. Okay, Meissner, I have not written corpuscles here, so there is Meissner corpuscles. And then the other one is Merkel discs, Meissner corpuscles, and then there is Merkel discs, and then finally we have the free nerve endings. So what are the three types of touch receptors? Meissner corpuscles, okay, then we have Merkel discs, and finally we have the free nerve endings. But all of them, they are not going to detect the touch in similar manner. So Meissner corpuscles, if you take, they will be detecting light pressure. That means they'll be sensitive to light pressure, which means now the touch is going to be very light. So if you just tap your hand, that light pressure which is being generated is going to be detected by the Meissner corpuscles. Then if you take the Merkel discs will be sensitive to light touch. So the touch and pressure is different. So Meissner corpuscles will be a light pressure, Merkel discs will be a light touch. Okay, and free nerve endings, they have not specifically mentioned what they will be detecting. Okay, so what are we learning here? Once again, what are we learning, everyone? Listen carefully. Mechanoreceptors, what will they detect? They will be detecting stimulus which will be arising as a result of mechanical energy deformation. So what are the types of mechanical energy deformations? Pressure, touch, stretch, sound, motion, all of these are mechanical energy deformation. So based on them, there are three types of mechanoreceptors present in the human body: touch receptor, pressure receptor, and vibration receptor. Touch receptors, if you take, where are they present in your body? They will be present mostly close to your skin surface. Okay, the location of touch receptors is close to your skin surface, because that's where you will touch, right? So are you going to go and touch your internal body? No. So it's your skin surface. So there are three types of touch receptors which can be explained: Meissner corpuscles, Merkel discs, and free nerve endings. Meissner corpuscles will be sensitive to light pressure, a light pressure which you will, slightly give a push on your skin. So that is Meissner corpuscles. Merkel discs will be detecting, they will be sensitive to light touch. A slight touch on your skin, that is going to be detected by the Merkel discs. And then finally, the last one is free nerve endings. Okay. Then we have the pressure receptors. So pressure receptors are Pacinian corpuscles. Okay. So pressure receptors are what? They are Pacinian corpuscles. So P for P. Pacinian corpuscles, remember, the location where they are present is in very deep skin. In very deep skin, you will be able to find the Pacinian corpuscles. They are sensitive to deep pressure. Okay, Meissner corpuscles are going to be sensitive to deep pressure. So if you take the Meissner corpuscles, Meissner corpuscles will be sensitive to light pressure. Pacinian corpuscles will be sensitive to deep pressure. Okay, so under touch only. Now, see, you might be wondering, why do we have pressure? This is Meissner corpuscles are detecting light pressure. So why is this coming under touch receptor and not under pressure receptor? That's because now they are present near the skin surface, right? So this light pressure which we are talking about here is generated because of the pressure on the skin surface. That is why they are classified under touch receptors. Okay. On the other hand, the Pacinian corpuscles are considered to be a pressure receptor because they are present in very deep skin and they are sensitive to deep pressure which is generated in the deep skin. Okay, so these are the first two types of mechanoreceptors: touch receptors and pressure receptors. So one last time, say with me, where are touch receptors present? They are present mostly close to the skin surface. Okay, what are the three types? Meissner corpuscles, Merkel discs, and free nerve endings. So what will the Meissner corpuscles detect? They will be detecting light pressure. A light pressure which will be, basically creating on your skin surface, that will be detected by the Meissner corpuscles. Merkel disc will be sensitive to light touch. Then under pressure receptors, we have the Pacinian corpuscles. Pacinian corpuscles, unlike the touch receptors, they are present in very deep skin. So both touch receptors and the pressure receptors are present in your skin. Remember that. The only difference is touch receptors are present on your skin surface, whereas pressure receptors are present in your deep skin. And Pacinian corpuscles are going to be exactly opposite to the Meissner corpuscles. Pacinian corpuscles are sensitive to deep pressure. Okay, and then finally we have the vibration receptors. So the vibration receptors are two. So most of the touch receptors will also be able to detect the vibration. Okay, so most touch receptors, they also have the ability to detect the vibration. For example, Meissner corpuscles, Pacinian corpuscles, so they are also detecting the vibration. So remember, most of the touch receptors, they can also detect the vibrations. So under this, now even even though they have said most of the touch receptors can detect the vibrations, so under this even Pacini and corpuscles are coming. So even the pressure receptor has the ability to detect the vibration, like Meissner corpuscles and Pacini and corpuscles. They have given us examples. Okay. Apart from that, there is a very special thing which is happening in your inner ear, which will be responsible for detecting vibration as well. Okay. So in your inner ear, there will be hairs present. Okay. So what will be present in the inner ear? There will be hairs present in these three locations. So the hair cells of the organ of Corti, okay, the hair cells in the organ of Corti, they will be able to detect sound vibrations. What will they be detecting? Sound vibrations. Where the hair cells in the organ of Corti, there is something called as organ of Corti inside your inner ear that will be detecting the sound vibrations. If you have not learned ear, I have uploaded a video on YouTube on the structure of ear, so you can go watch that. I have explained the entire structure of ear. So in the inner ear, there is a particular structure called as organ of Corti. Okay, so these organ of Corti will be having hair cells. So the hair cells in the organ of Corti, they will be detecting sound vibrations. Okay, the vibrations which are related to sound. Then in the inner ear itself, there is something called as vestibule. So then these vestibules are also having hair cells. So the hair cells of the vestibules, they will be detecting gravity. The gravity, the linear motion, the gravity is being detected by the vestibule. So you're standing, you have that balance. That is all because of the vestibule. Then you have something called as the semicircular canal. Okay, so these are also present in the ear. In the inner ear, there is something called as the semicircular canal. So the hair cells of the semicircular canal, they will be detecting motion, which means your movement. Your movement will be detected by the semicircular canal. Okay, so again, these are also coming under vibrations. Okay, so this is all about mechanoreceptors. Listen again. Okay, I'm not repeating this because it's not that you have not understood. It's because you can settle the content in your head properly. Okay, so mechanoreceptors, what will they be responding to? Stimulus, of course. But what type of stimulus? Mechanical energy deformation. Stimulus arising from mechanical energy deformation. Like what? Like pressure, touch, stretch, sound, motion, whatever that cannot be detected and which cannot be classified will be detected by the mechanoreceptors simply. Okay, so there are three types of mechanoreceptors which are present in the human body: touch receptors, pressure receptors, and vibration receptors. Touch receptors, where are they present? Close to your skin surface. And pressure receptors, where are they present? They are present in the very deep skin, not close to the surface, but they'll be present in the very deep skin. So, what are the three types of touch receptors? Meissner corpuscles, Merkel discs, and free nerve endings. Please remember the examples because they frequently question this. Meissner corpuscles will be sensitive to light pressure, a light pressure which will be created on your skin surface. Merkel disc is sensitive to light touch, a tap on your skin surface. And then there is free nerve endings as well. Okay, and also remember these free nerve endings are coming under thermoreceptors also. So remember that. And then you have the pressure receptors. So under pressure receptors, we have the Pacinian corpuscles. So these Pacinian corpuscles, they are sensitive to deep pressure. Okay, not deep temperature, deep pressure. So Meissner corpuscles will be sensitive to light pressure. Pacinian corpuscles will be sensitive to deep pressure, a deep pressure which will be generated. On the other hand, vibration receptors, if you take, most of the touch receptors can also detect vibrations like the Pacinian corpuscles, the Meissner corpuscles. So they have the ability to detect vibration as well. Okay. So apart from that, remember your inner ear has three compartments called organ of Corti, vestibule, and semicircular canal. So all three of them, they will be having hair cells. So the hair cells of organ of Corti, they will be detecting the sound vibrations, the vibrations which are generated due to sound. The vestibule, the hair cells in the vestibule will be detecting gravity. And the hair cells of the semicircular canal, they will be detecting motion. Your movement will be detected by the hair cells of the semicircular canal. Okay, that is all about mechanoreceptors. Then we are moving to pain receptors. So pain receptors will be detecting stimulus that will be reflecting harmful conditions. So like the name says pain, they'll be detecting pain. Okay, so that means they will be detecting stimuli which is resulted as a result of harmful conditions, and they can arise either from extreme temperature or pressure, or else they can arise from certain chemicals which have the ability to damage tissues. Okay, so what will the pain receptors detect? So as I mentioned earlier, for each of the receptors, you have to first of all know what will they be detecting. So likewise, what will the pain receptors be detecting? They will be detecting stimulus which will arise from, which will be reflecting harmful conditions. You have to move your hand away, you have to move away. So harmful conditions they will be detecting. So that can be arising from extreme temperature or pressure. Maybe it can be a fire, or maybe there is an extreme pressure. So that can be the case, or else it can be chemicals which can damage your tissues, which can damage your epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, whatever tissue. So either due to these two reasons, the pain receptors can be stimulated. Okay, so they will be having special nerve endings present. Okay, this the pain receptors, they will be having special nerve endings present in them. These special nerve endings will be detecting the pain, and finally the pain is gonna be perceived by your brain, and then your brain will tell you whether you have to move your hand away from the fire or not. Okay, that's all about pain receptors. So there is no special names or anything that you have to remember in pain receptors. So only thing you have to remember is what will they detect. They will be detecting stimulus, of course, which will be reflecting harmful conditions. And how can they arise? They could arise from extreme temperature or pressure, or they can arise from certain chemicals that can damage the tissues. So there are special nerve endings present in different parts of your body, and they can detect this tissue damage or pain. Ultimately, this pain is going to be perceived by your brain. This pain is going to be sent by your brain to process the information. That's all about pain receptors. Okay, so mechanoreceptors will be detecting pressure, touch, stretch, sound, motion. So you have touch, pain, touch, pressure, vibration receptors. Touch receptors are three types. Where are they present? Close to the skin surface. Pressure receptors, just one, Pacini and corpuscle. So remember P for P, and they will be detecting, they'll be present in very deep skin. And under vibration, remember most of the touch and pressure can be detecting vibration as well. And don't forget about the special structures present in the inner ear. And pain receptors, you don't really have special names for that, but remember they can be arising from extreme temperature or pressure and certain chemicals which can damage the tissues. And there are special nerve endings present throughout your body to detect the pain, which they will be ultimately sending to your brain to interpret and perceive. Okay, so that is all about mechanoreceptors and pain receptors. Did you all understand? Is it clear, everyone? Have you all understood? Yes, any doubts? Others? Any doubts? Yes, okay. So now you can. Your question is you have to write a brief account of the sensory receptors, and you have to briefly explain the specialized temperature sensitive receptors. You will be getting 15 minutes and your time starts now. Shall I start? Are you all ready with your pen and paper? Okay, I'm going to start. Time starts now. Briefly explain the specialized temperature sensitive receptors. Okay, so the first one, which says briefly write a brief account of the sensory receptors. Some sensory cells are specialized neurons. Okay, sensory receptors can inform the central nervous system about the conditions inside and outside the body. Second point, so the reason why we have not mentioned the cell and stuffs here is because we will be repeating that again under the basic characteristics of sensory receptors. So because of that, they have not given that as points once again at the beginning. Okay. So why do they have the ability to inform the central nervous system about the conditions inside and outside so that they can maintain homeostasis? That is the third point. Specific sensory receptors detect the stimuli that arise in the external environment, and there are others which are internal receptors, and they can sense the stimuli that arise inside the body. Okay, so five points are here, and then basic characteristics of sensory receptors. It is a special structure. It can be a cell, it can be an organ, or it can be a subcellular structure. And what does it do? It is designed to receive a specific stimuli. Okay, so it can detect the stimulus when if the stimulus is at or above the threshold level. Okay, so what does it do? It converts the energy of the stimulus into changing membrane potential. So if there is something that is included in the brackets, it is not compulsory. Okay, it's not compulsory. So it can convert it into a changing membrane potential so that it can be later transmitted as action potential. Then what was the fourth one? The fourth feature was it was always connected to the into the nervous system. That was the fourth basic characteristic we had learned. Then what's the fifth one we learned? It was about amplification. So during the conversion of stimulus energy into action potential, there is sensory signal, right? This sensory signal can be strengthened, and this process is known as amplification. Okay, so, if the stimulation is continuous, that is the sixth basic characteristic, which is about the sensory adaptation. If the stimulation is continuous, many receptors show decrease in responsiveness, and this is called as sensory adaptation. So, when I'm reading, please correct in the meanwhile, okay? So then, this is called a sensory adaptation. So this example is also not must. For example, if there is a continuous exposure to strong smell, the perception of that smell will gradually decrease and stop within a few minutes. So whatever is in the brackets is not compulsory. Okay. So, if we write the points of specialized cell, no, if you have written this before now in the notes also, we have already written that first, and then again in the basic characteristics, we wrote it again, right? It's fine. You won't go wrong. So, you won't be getting extra marks. Okay. You will be awarded marks only once. So, it's not wrong. Then B, okay, briefly explain the specialized temperature sensitive receptors. They are thermoreceptors. So temperature sensitive receptors, you have to say what are the temperature sensitive receptors? They are thermoreceptors. You have to mention that. And what do? They detect heat and they detect cold on the body surface and in the internal environment of the body. So where are they located? They are located in the skin, and the skin ones, the thermoreceptors on the skin, they detect the body surface temperature. And there are thermoreceptors found in the hypothalamus. They detect the temperature of the blood circulating through the internal organs. So this is compulsorily. Whatever is underlined, you should compulsorily write. Okay. So either you should say temperature of the blood circulating through the internal organs, or you should say core temperature, core body temperature. Okay. So what are the thermoreceptors which are found in the skin? Crow's and bulbs, which will be detecting cold, Ruffney corpuscles, which will be detecting warmth, and free nerve endings, which can detect both cold as well as warmth. Okay. Yeah, if it is repeating, it's not compulsory to write, because anyway they will give marks only once. So this is what I mentioned earlier also. Before the specialized neurons, there are points, right? Like they can be a cell, organ, and stuffs. So if they are repeating again, you can write it only once. Okay. And the free nerve endings will be detecting both cold and warmth. And the thermoreceptors found in the hypothalamus are just specialized neurons and nothing else. So, totally in this essay, you are having 22 plus 16, 38 points. If you have written any 37, you will be getting 148. So, if you have written all the 38 points, you will be getting a total of 150 marks. So, if more than 37 points are written, you can add 2 marks extra, which will be accounting for the total of 150 marks, which is a complete essay mark. Okay. Fine. So I hope you have understood. So this is the essay. Okay. So now shall we move on to the question tute? Do you all have the question tute with you? I hope we can move to the question tute. So I'm gonna share the question tute with you guys. I hope you can see. So this is the nervous system question tute. Okay, so I will mark the questions and I will give you just around 5 minutes, because we don't have much questions from the sensory receptors. So mark the questions, okay? So I'll give you just 5 minutes to complete, and then we can discuss and we can wind up. All right, so starting off with the 2019 paper question, we have one in the second page, okay, under 2019. What is a sensory receptor? So I said you this can be asked as a definition. So they have asked that in the 2019 A level paper. Then what are the receptors that detect sound vibrations in the human ear? You can do this as well, okay? What are the receptors which detect sound vibrations in the human ear? Then in 2020, you don't have a question. Then moving on to 2021, you have an MCQ. Sensory receptors are connected with the nervous system, and the others you can read and you can answer. This is in page number 3. Okay. Then moving on to page number 4, you don't really have any question here. Yeah, you don't have any question here. Then moving to page number 5, you have one question which is the MCQ of 2022 A level. Select the correct statement regarding sensory receptors of man. Page number 5, very first question. And then there is no other question. So there is usually one or two, one MCQ, or else they can be a part of structured essay. Then moving to the sixth question, sixth page. What is meant by sensory adaptation? It's there. And yes, that's all. Then in the 2024 paper, you have an MCQ. In the 7th page, there is an MCQ. Which of the following mechanoreceptors are present close to the skin surface? And yeah, that's it. Yes, that's all I think. Yeah. So usually in every paper, there will be an MCQ or there will be one question in the structured essay. So I'll show once again. So in 2019, you have structured essay questions too. 2020, there was no question. In the 2021, you have an MCQ. 2022, you have an MCQ. 2023, you have a structured essay question. And in 2024, you have an MCQ. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Please quickly complete. Sharp 5 minutes. I'll be discussing them. Your time starts now. In the meanwhile, if you have doubts, please feel free to ask. Sensory receptor. Sensory receptor is a specialized structure which will be detecting a specific stimulus, and it will be converting the energy into what? Into a changing membrane potential, so that it will be transmitted to the central nervous system as action potential. So this is what you have to say. So if you have written all these 3 points, you will be getting 3 marks. Okay, there is 3 marks for this particular question. Then what are the receptors which can detect sound vibrations which are located in the human ear? So sound vibrations are detected by whom? Organ of Corti. Okay, organ of Corti. Sound vibrations are detected by organ of Corti. So 1 mark if you have written that. Then next question is from 2021. What are sensory receptors? So they are connected with the nervous system. Are they connected with the nervous system? Yes, that is the 4th basic structure, basic feature of a sensory receptor. So this one over here, this is correct. Okay, so A is correct. A is gonna be correct. B includes specialized glands designed to receive a specific stimulus. So do they include specialized glands in order to receive a specific stimulus? No. So they can be a cell, organ, or a subcellular structure. So it's not gland. So B is wrong. So A is correct. B is wrong. C, they show sensory adaptation. Yes. So they have something called a sensory adaptation where this, if the stimulus is continuous, many receptors can show a decrease in responsiveness. So C is correct. Then can amplify the sensory signal. Yes, that is called as sensory amplification. So they can the sensory signal can be strengthened when transmitting. So D is also correct. E, detect the stimulus that arise only in the external environment. No, they can detect the stimulus which can arise from both external as well as internal environment. So if the answer is ACD, the answer is 2, okay? Somebody has asked me what is ACD. ACD is 2. ABD means 1, ACD means 2, AB means 3, CD means 4, any other option? 5. Then moving on to 2022 A level, select the correct statement regarding sensory receptors of man. Receptors for taste are modified neurons. Are they modified neurons? No. Say taste are not neurons, they are cells, okay? Modified epithelial cells. Olfactory receptors show sensory adaptation. Yes. So if you get exposed to a smell, certain smell for a very long time, you won't be able to detect that anymore. That's because they are showing sensory adaptation. So 2 is correct, but let's see why the others are wrong. Roughly corpuscles detect cold. No, I said you. Crow crows and bulbs. Crows detect cold. Roughly corpuscles are going to detect what? They're going to detect warmth. Cones are more sensitive to light than rods. No, rods are sensitive to light and therefore they are enabling night vision. Cones are providing color vision. They are not much sensitive to light. Hair cells of vestibule of the ear detect angular movements. Okay, so this is something regarding ear structure. Vestibule, they will be detecting gravity, linear movements, and it's the semicircular canal which will be detecting the angular movements of motion. Okay, so anyway, you have a clear answer, which is second. Then moving on to 2023, what is meant by sensory adaptation? So, what is a sensory adaptation? Sensory adaptation means there is a decrease in responsiveness of sensory receptors due to a continuous stimulation. That is what you have to mention. Decrease in responsiveness of the sensory receptors due to what? Due to continuous stimulation. So if you have written this, you will be getting the entire mark for this question, which is just 1 mark. Okay. Then moving on to 2024 paper question, the latest paper question. Which of the following mechanoreceptors are present close to the surface of the human skin? So free nerve endings, are they present close to the surface of the human skin? So what are the mechanoreceptors which are present close to the surface of the human skin? The touch receptors. So then search for the touch receptor. So is free nerve ending a touch receptor? Yes, it can be a touch receptor. It can be a thermoreceptor as well. So it can be a touch receptor, right? So A is correct. Okay. So cancel out all the options which doesn't have A in it. Then B, Pacinian corpuscles. No, Pacinian corpuscle is a pressure receptor which is present in the deep skin. So B cannot come. So if B cannot come, first and third are wrong. So the answer is A, C, D only. Okay. So C, Meissner corpuscles. Yes. So Meissner corpuscles will be detecting what type of touch? They'll be detecting light pressure. And Merkel discs will be detecting light touch. So these three are the ones which are present close to the surface of the human skin as they are touch receptors. So the answer is the fourth one. Okay, so then, yeah, that's all regarding the question. So you can try the rest of the tute. Okay, I'll send you the answer scheme. So the rest of the tute, it contains questions from Moratua paper and also it contains questions from FWC paper. So it contains all the MCQs, structured essays, everything classified. And you can also try the rest of them, not only regarding sensory receptors, you can also try the nervous system if you have learned. If you have not learned yet, you can do it when you are learning. Okay, so then that's it. So yeah, so thank you all for joining and making this session really interesting and memorable. So I hope this session was useful to you and looking forward to conduct more seminars in the future, inshallah. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining. Have a nice day. Good night.